Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Stop, Look, and Listen. I'm your host, LeTroy Gardner. Co-host this week, we have the Mario Washington, of the good old boys and throw up tackle in the bedroom. But yeah, this week we have a very special guest. He's no stranger to Stop, Look, and Listen. He's been on here before. He's DJ, producer, professor, author. He's back this time to talk about his latest book, The Quiet Storm, a historical and cultural analysis of the power, passion, and pain of R&B groups. We have the Amani experience himself, Amani
Yes.
Roberts. Welcome to the show, Amani.
Thank you very much, LeTroy. Thank you for inviting me back. Nice to meet you, Mario. I'm glad to chat.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Amani's Chocolate City born and bred, Howard University alum. What inspired you to write The Quiet Storm?
I went to grad school for music business, get my master's in music business, and you had to pick a thesis topic. And this was the one topic that rose to the top. And all along the way, people are like, you have something here that's more than just a thesis. This can really, really go somewhere, and it should at least be a book. And so I had released my other book before, like in April 2020. So writing another book was a little daunting. But once I got through the program, I said, okay, let me try to write this next one. So that was the general inspiration. It's like a love letter to R&B music, and it was fun to write it. It was difficult, but I'm glad for the journey.
What were some of the difficulties with writing it?
I think what I've learned is the hardest part about writing this book is finishing it 3 times, and so like you have to finish it first to turn in the first manuscript. Then you have to do the edits, the first edits, then the second edits, and a lot of times you can get tripped up or stop. Also, during the book writing process, like life's happening, whether you're going through professional with like a new job, things like that, personal relationships aren't working out, and that kind of can block your creativity. That happened to me, so that took me probably a good like I want to say like a good 7 or 8, almost a year to kind of get back going because I was stuck. And it really wasn't writing like writer's block. It was just personally stuck. But I was able to get out of it and keep going. And then I was able to see the finish line. And here we are.
Right. So I mean, you DJ, so you have a close relationship with the music that you play, and I'm sure that helps with the research and putting this book together. But just talk about um, the process of digging in from the 1950s and till now, and just figuring out who should be profiled in this book.
Yeah, so I had a criteria where it was based on like 4 things. The first thing was Grammy nominations, Grammy wins, Billboard Hot 100 hits, and it's the overall charts, not the R&B charts, but the big charts. And then it was record sales, and then notable performances, particularly the groups in the 1950s and 60s and part of the early 70s. It wasn't very common to see them on television, whether it be late night TV, anything like that, or to perform at like the Kennedy Center. Like, that was rare. So if they were able to do those, they kind of got more points in like the algorithm, so to speak. And I had myself and my students, we researched the decades, we ran everyone through, and that's how we came up with the top 10 or 11. For some decades, there were so many groups that I definitely want to highlight them. So that's why I have the honorable mention section for some of the groups in like, particularly the 70s, 80s, and 90s. There were so many groups. So that's how we picked them. And then we just laid it out and highlighted. Each group has their own chapter in the book. And, whether or not I list all their top 100 songs, Grammy nominations, Grammy wins, my favorite songs, then my favorite samples, because we know about hip hop. Like hip hop samples R&B music so much. So I just gave you another snippet there, and then I gave you some thoughts about each group, whether I was just learning about them or if I had experience with them, personally.
How much weight did you put on stuff like Grammy Awards? Because I was actually recently having an argument with somebody about how Grammy Awards don't even matter to me, and like it doesn't take away from how great someone is. Like Brian McKnight has 0 Grammy
Yeah,
awards, and
yeah.
so how much weight did you put on that?
It probably wasn't the heaviest on the weighting format because the Jackson 5, legendary group, no Grammys.
Right.
And so there's lots of groups in there that have no Grammys that I was shocked. about. So it was weighted. It wasn't weighted too heavily. But I agree with you. Well, it's the way the music business is now. It's like the standard currently. Now in 20 years it could change,
Yeah.
but kind of the gold standard is Grammys. And I know you can't really buy a Grammy, but you can do campaigns that can heavily influence the
Uh,
voters and everything.
I've
So it's
seen
it's
them.
an imperfect
Yeah.
science, but it's what we have right now to kind of judge success. But that's why I had four criteria, not just one, because
Mhm.
some of them can outweigh. Like if there's, I mean, if you look at the hits that Jackson had, they had their first four songs were number one. Like that's unprecedented. And so they just blew up out of nowhere, quote unquote. So yeah, that's kind of my answer.
Hmm. Um, why do you think R&B groups, despite their immense cultural impact, are often overlooked in the modern music conversations?
I think the challenge is that they're not top of mind because okay, we're in July now. So let's take a week in July in like the mid 90s and like 14, I did this research, like 1997, 14 of the top 20 Billboard hits were R&B groups. If you fast forward just one decade to 2007,
Mhm.
I think 12 or 13 of the Billboard Hot 100 top 20 songs were hip hop. So you can see how they faded from being top of mind. They're still there. We still have the music, but like it's just not around us anymore. And part of that is, and I talk about this a little bit in the book, and especially when I'm speaking out about the book, let's look at like Vibe magazine, Essence, Ebony, Jet. Like they all have gone out of publication except for Essence. So you take at its peak like 8,300,000 monthly subscribers. That's pretty much gone. Now it's down to less than a million. Plus, in the late 90s, mid 90s, 1994, I think it was, no more Arsenio Hall show. Who took Arsenio Hall's place? No one. No more In Living Color. Who took that show's place? No more. And that's where it's called like earned media. Like that's where a lot of R&B groups would be able to get on stage and get interviewed, and just it was to spread like wildfire. Also, look at Soul Train. Soul Train gone. Like especially in the format it was before with Don Cornelius. So when you lose all those type of media properties and nothing replaces it, it really stops R&B specifically from being top of mind. And so that's kind of how I answer that question, is that it might have been a long lag to its effect, but once you get to the mid 2000s, the effect of not having those shows, it showed up.
Do you think that the music industry in itself just kind of gave up on the idea of R&B groups, because it seems like we have these individuals now that are just coming onto the scene, whereas prior to that it was somebody that came from a group, like Beyonce came from Destiny's Child. You know what I mean? Like, do you think that the industry just kind of shifted away from the idea of the group?
I think the industry made a decision. They decided between hip hop or R&B. The question is, why couldn't they choose both? And I think I've heard some off the record conversations from former record executives that was a conscious decision to focus less on R&B groups, to focus more on hip hop. It's cheaper, easier to control. You don't have to worry about makeup, choreography, anything, a track, instrumentals, none of that. So it's cheaper. And then to add on top of that, you have EDM music that really took the stage. And so if you remember like the late 2000s, like you had like Usher, Rihanna, Neo making all these EDM tracks, because that
Right.
was kind of the way the industry was taking. That's also cheaper to produce, easier, and radio stations maybe they got tired. They didn't want to hear about love and falling in love and like a Jodeci or like a Boys to Men. They kind of wanted people to be partying, and then the trend is more towards hip hop. That's why the radio format Quiet Storm kind of faded in the late 90s. Like it went away. It was really strong from like the mid 70s to like 1999, but then they flipped to hip hop because that's what the younger people wanted. The younger people didn't want that. So I think record labels and the industry made a decision, and that's where we're seeing the impact. But really the question is, why did they make that decision? Now that's a whole nother book and a whole nother article. But that's kind of to agree with what you're saying.
Hmm. Yeah, kind of piggybacking off that question. We've seen, as far as the dynamic within a group, whether or not a group is clearly positioning one or two people for solo success, and that star is bigger than the brand. And then in other cases where the group name or the brand is bigger than its essential parts, and someone can leave the group and you replace them with somebody else, and they continue to be successful. What role does the record label play in that, as far as um, figuring out whether it's the sum of all parts or there's a star that we need to push to the forefront?
I think in the era we're in now, the record label's looking at like all the social media statistics, all the buzz, the following, and that kind of detracts from the overall harmony in a group. And so they're looking to say, okay, who in this group can really break out and be an individual star where it could be easier to promote them, maybe more affordable. So I think they're watching. But, my counter to my own thought is that, K-pop groups are very successful.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing extremely well. So the group concept still works. It's just that why doesn't it work for like R&B and really rock? Like rock, it doesn't work also anymore. So for those two genres, like, why does it not work? And I think that some record labels are more open-minded and are pushing groups and are trying to get them to work. And some are just saying like, let's get a group in here. Let's see who does well. Let's see who the public really aligns with. And then let's promote them. And maybe we kind of shelve the group. So I think they're looking to see, unfortunately, the way the industry is now, like it's all about followers and social media, and then they try to build the singing on it last, where it should be the singing and the artistic support first, and then following. So that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Isn't that something that has been around for a while, though? Because if you look at Frankie Lyman, the teenagers kind of disappeared after it was realized that he was a star. Is it like basically like the same type of formula, though, because it's cheaper to have an individual versus a group?
It's a similar formula, but back in the day, I hate to be like back in the day, get off my lawn, but back in the day, you would have a group do 4 or 5 albums. So they give you a nice body of work, and then Lionel Richie will lead the Commodores, and then Diana Ross will lead the Supremes. And you even look at like New Edition. They came together. They had their group. Bobby Brown left, had his success. Ralph Tresvant left, had his success. Johnny Gill left and had his success. But then they came back together, made more music. So it's a format that's been around for a while. It's just that now they don't even give it an album. They might give it a couple singles, an EP, and go. So I guess, in the past we were spoiled, but if there's a group and they can give you 3 or 4 quality albums and they do well, that's a good run. And then they can go solo. But nowadays they have no patience. They just pick, choose, and let's go, and they're gone.
How do you feel about, I guess, today's mindset when it comes to assembling a group, and that's putting together a reality show? Like I just finished watching Netflix's Building the Band with Kelly Rowland and Liam Payne, rest in peace, and Nicole Scherzinger, um, and it's like everyone's looking for the quickest way to manufacture talent instead of going through the process of like Motown, where like they're grinding, they're performing, they're practicing, they're harnessing their talent. Like, is that playing a role in the lack of success for groups nowadays?
I would say yes. I mean, it affects the longevity of a group. Like you can manufacture a group. Let's call it like the microwave age, where you put the ingredients together, you put them in a microwave and hope that it gets hot. But very quickly after you microwave something and it's out in the wild, so to speak, it gets cold real quick. Compared to if we're going to use cooking analogies, and you view the groups of the past like a crock pot, and you put them in the crock pot and you let it kind of simmer for a while. Most of the most successful groups met in high school, or they met in the same community. They gigged around, they performed. Then they might have seen another group in the same area and partnered with them. They came together and were stronger. They kept performing. So, okay, you're already adding on 5, 6, 7 years of performing together. So they know how to perform. Then they have different songs that they take. I like to use Jodeci as a good example, because you had KC and you had KC and JoJo. They were kind of in separate gospel groups. And then they kind of came together. And that's how they were able to do so well. Boys to Men, they went to high school together, probably junior, middle school also. Like all these, even back in the day, you have groups that grew up in the same block, and they would sing together on the corner, and then they would grow. So you have groups that have been simmering in the hot pot for years. So that way they're able to get through some adversity. They're able to maybe share the lead roles where they're not always singing lead or whatever. But when they get encountered with issues, whether it be management issues, record label issues, even internal issues, whether it has to do with drugs, whatever, they have been together long enough so that they can get through that, compared to these new groups where as soon as they get a bump in the road, they're out. And so that's kind of what I see in terms of these manufactured groups.
We're talking about the book, the Quiet Storm, and one of the things that me and LeTroy have been arguing about consistently of late is that Billboard top 75 R&B artists. I just want to get your thoughts on that. Like, did you agree with Stevie Wonder being at the top? Did you agree with people like Luther Vandross being so much lower than it felt like he was supposed to be?
I kind of look at that list, but I don't think any list that puts Stevie Wonder at the top is necessarily wrong,
Right.
because he is like a genius. Yes, I don't have a problem with that. Now, Luther, remember back in the day, though, Luther, it took him a long time to get his Grammy.
Yeah.
It took him a long time to get the notoriety in a positive way that he should have gotten. Even he himself didn't believe in himself. David Bowie believed in him before he believed in himself.
Yeah.
So, I have to look at the list and see. But Stevie Wonder's there. At least they made a list. So they made a list good, so we can debate it, talk about it. Did they have Prince on there? Because Prince, is an individual
he was
artist.
In the top 10.
Yeah, it was like number
10. Michael
6
Jackson.
or 7.
Yeah, Michael
Mike
Jackson
was in the top 10 as well.
What females did they have on the list?
Aretha was number 2.
Okay.
Mariah was in the top 10. Whitney was in the top 10. Beyonce was in the top 10.
Yeah, we didn't have problems with like the top of the list. Like, our issues were like having people like Usher above Teddy Pendergrass.
That was your problem.
Above Otis Redding, above
that was
Isaac
his
Hayes.
problem.
Like, stuff like that is I took issue with. Yeah,
that was your problem.
Well, when they make these lists, though, they kind of have like a recency bias.
Yeah.
Because Teddy Pendergrass has been gone for so long. I wonder if the person making the list even know he was in Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes.
Right.
He was a drummer.
Right.
He was a drummer first. Like, I bet you they don't really know these things. So Otis Redding, he had a short life, but he contributed so much to the genre, and he has some of the most legendary songs. So you got to kind of balance the recency bias with that. I'm gonna have to look at that list, though. That's interesting. That'd be a good debate.
Yeah. So as a result of that list, after we debated for hours, we recorded a show about it, and then we were like, someone needs to do one on groups, and we couldn't find one.
Right.
So we started putting together a list as far as like amount of hits.
Okay.
And we're in a process of putting together a list, and we want your assistance.
Okay.
We want to record a show with you.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay,
we can do
good.
that. Now, who's on the list so far? Who do you have in the top 10? We can do a little preview.
So we feel like there's 2 at the top, and then there's a big gap before you get to number 3.
There's 3 at the top.
2
after doing the research, there's one more. No, there's one more at the top.
What are the 3?
Because he was going to say that, well, we had always thought Isley Brothers and Earth, Wind and Fire, but due to my research, Temptations is up there too. They're probably number 1.
The longevity is there.
Yeah.
Number 1.
So I'll say this about the Isley Brothers. They're one of my favorite groups in history for 3 main reasons. They have had hits in 6 straight decades.
Thank you.
From the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s.
That's right.
That is unprecedented. Plus, their music gets even stronger because they are one of the most sampled groups of all time. I love the Isley Brothers. It was so funny. I was on the local Fox station we were talking about, and the Isley Brothers came up. I said, no, you need to know this because some people don't know. And they're still touring now, still selling out arenas in 2025.
Crazy.
So I say that. Earth, Wind, and Fire, absolutely. Because like I mentioned in the book, like live performances, they would elicit the help of David Copperfield to make their live performances like just memorable. And they've got so many hits. They got one of the most popular R&B songs of all time, September. Everyone knows that. Whether you're black, white, Asian, Latin, you know that song. And so Earth, Wind, and then Temptations, they have the receipts. They have gone many decades with many different members. Credit to them.
That's my thing about the Temptations, though. Like, that you have like the classic 5, but then like they've had like so many different people, coming in and out of that group, man. Like, I think to me that detracts a little bit from them because with the Isleys, it's Ron's voice.
Ron's
all
voice
the time. You know what I mean?
Voice.
Like,
now we will add in Isley, Jasper, Isley, because they went a little
Yeah,
left
yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
Caravan of Love is a legendary song, so we
Absolutely.
include them. But now, which female groups do you have that are going to be in the top 10?
Nah, go ahead and do like your top 5 because I have a top 10, but I don't know if you, Amani, if you
Oh.
thought about your top 10, but I know you have a top 5.
So Isley Brothers, they're one of my favorites. Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Although they never won a Grammy, New Edition. I'm shocked by that.
Crazy.
Amazing. And then I get with the female groups, I get a little, because it's like, I love SWV, but they didn't get the necessary love and receipts like a TLC or a Destiny's Child.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The Supremes good too, though. Supremes. Because I want to put a female group, Jackson 5 and the Jacksons, like they were good. But you got to think like TLC, Boys to Men, because there's only 2 U.S. based groups, female groups in history that have earned diamond status for an album. Only 2 female groups.
TLC.
You have TLC, and you have the Dixie Chicks. Mm-hmm. There is only 1 male R&B group that has ever gotten diamond status for album sales, Boys to Men. Like these are like big monuments, so to speak. So, this is going to be a good conversation. In Vogue never had a number 1 hit, but they always came in second, and they had a strong run. Yeah.
You didn't mention Escape.
Yeah, Escape top 10. That's, I think, no offense to Escape if they're listening out there. No offense, but that's kind of stretching it, because you look at the catalog of Escape compared to like a SWV,
right,
or a TLC or a Destiny's Child, like it doesn't really compare yet. So yeah, but Escape had a good run, but not to the level of some, like Diana Ross and Supremes. 11. Yeah. They released 11 songs. Didn't hit. They were called the No Hit Supremes inside of Motown. The disrespect. Like they called them the No Hit Supremes. But then 11 of their next 13 songs or 14 songs went to number 1. Mm-hmm. Like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Dr. Todd McClain provides periodontal and dental implant services in 2 convenient locations. They offer over a decade of experience treating patients, and appointments can even be scheduled in the evenings, weekends, or early mornings. Give them a call in Chapel Hill at 919-537-9774 or in Durham at 919-484-8338, or visit them online at gumsandimplants.org.
Who's your top 5 or 10, Mario?
That's hard, man. Like, I mean, I know, like I said, I got Isley's EWF. That's definitely the top 2. I'll probably put my problem with Boys to Men, as popular as they are, is really 2 albums. That 3rd album was like the beginning of like the drop off, and I think you can see that a lot with a lot of R&B artists, which is why it's so remarkable to me what Earth, Wind, and Fire, what Isley's have done, because they did it for so long. I would have to have New Edition in that top 5 as well, in particular, because even though they branched off and did like their solo thing, it like you mentioned earlier, Amani, they came back together, and really they never stopped being New Edition, even though they were doing their own thing. And in particular, what's more remarkable about them is that the person that they were trying to make into the big star, the solo artist, wasn't the big star out of the group. It was Bobby who ended up becoming the big star. Ralph had an okay solo run. You know what I mean? So like, I think that those 3, and then it gets a little bit dicey for me. I think SWV. I love Escape, but I think that SWV, when you look at the total album sales versus what Escape did, it's not even remotely close. And I remember them having that argument on that on the TV show about who was going to close the show when they were touring together. It should have been no doubt that it was SWV. Like, why are we having this conversation?
Well, it's because Candy's famous outside of music, even though she was the most successful within the group, and then Tiny is married to T.I. and they have reality show success. My top.
I probably would also have to, and then the Supremes probably would round it out. I think those 5. I think it would be hard for me to like have somebody else hop in there. SWV would be 5th after the Supremes. So
like my top 10, which number 10, I was juggling 3 or 4 different groups, but Temptations, Isley Brothers, Earth, Wind and Fire, the Supremes, the OJs,
Yeah.
Jackson 5, New Edition, Destiny's Child, Cool in the Gang. And then the last one I was debating between Gladys Knight and the Pips, Boys the Men, and TLC.
I got to go Gladys Knight if I had to choose between those three. And again, it's the same thing with TLC. Like, I feel like by the time you got to Fan Mail, it was starting to, even though Scrubs was like massive, like, but just as an overall body of work, there was a drop off to me from Crazy Sexy Cool to the next album. You know?
Gladys Knight. Whew, she's still performing to this day too.
Yep.
So you got that longevity.
And like how do you especially with these different eras, when you said like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, was a wealth of talent when it comes to groups. How do you distinguish between the longevity and then the impact, where the longevity might not have been quite as long, where there's only 2 or 3 strong albums and then they disappear, versus 30 to 40 years of putting out quality music?
That's a good question. I think longevity, in my opinion, would probably be a more deciding factor than, kind of these, not one-hit wonders, but these quick flashes in the pan. But it's hard nowadays. Like a group that comes out in like the 90s or did well in the 90s, it's hard for them to maintain compared to like a group from like Gladys Knight, where she can still perform and it's a little different. I guess the groups just don't stay together. Cool in the Gang, although they don't have JT Taylor anymore, they still perform. I guess it's just different. Now, maybe we'll look up and in 10 years, we'll see like, but Boyz II Men, they still perform and they've gone from the highest of highs to the low, and now they're kind of coming back. So they are creating longevity.
Right.
In Vogue, see the issues. In Vogue, they don't get along. So they can't perform anymore. SWV, they
Not
might
getting along is putting it lightly.
Yeah, I know. They hate each other. It's no problem.
I have a viral interview with Dawn.
Yeah.
And I might be the reason why she's never going to be in a group again.
Oh, yeah. Because they were good. They were very, very good. Yeah. But they were kind of manufactured too. They were kind of picked and put together too, compared to they didn't grow up together, so that you can see why that would happen. But yeah, the longevity is, even Cameo still performs. Yep. So you look at like the 70, 80 groups, like they're still performing, they're out there. And so it's different. Yeah, that's a good point, though. It's different.
I just had a thought, like, because you mentioned Teddy Pendergrass being a drummer for Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. We know that Stokely for
Mint Condition
drummer. And then you mentioned Cameo, where Larry Blackman also was a drummer. Like, why is it that these guys were like being like basically kind of suppressed when
Phil Collins too?
Phil Collins, another one, right? That's
Phil Collins, Jeffrey Osborne from LTD,
that's right.
Drummer also. Like, I think that maybe there was a lead singer that was probably a little intimidated, so they said, "We're gonna put you in the back," because the drummers are in the back of the band, they're not even in the front. They're gonna put you in the back, but it doesn't matter. Like, you can put them in the back as long as you want, but eventually they're gonna get a time to sing and they'll come up. So. And I don't know the specific answers for the specific group, but that's what I would think. Like, they just put him in the back. But Stokely was different because it was his group, I want to say. And he was drumming, and then he maybe took lead or whatever. And now we have a legendary group, Mint Condition, Pretty Brown Eyes. But even Jeffrey Osborne, Love Ballad. Like, I just think maybe there's some group dynamics that caused him to push him to the back. But then Teddy Pendergrass came to the front. Then he went solo, and he said, "Later for you all."
Yeah, my man Steve Arrington, another one
that's another one. That's right.
In the forefront. So when we're debating hip hop groups, we're trying to distinguish between whether or not a duo is a group. Like, did you include duos in this conversation as well, as far as R&B groups?
Yeah, the most famous duo I put in there was Sam and Dave. So Sam and Dave is in there. So I consider anyone 2 or more members was good. And so, I haven't, like, Casey and JoJo had a great run after Jodeci, but I didn't really include their stats, but they are also a good duo too. Nowadays,
did you like them? Did you like them as a duo?
Well, Lately, I liked All My Life. They were more popular. I love Jodeci. Like, I'm a like Jodeci, You and I is my favorite track, Forever My Lady. But I like some of the Casey and Joe, but it was more kind of pop, and they crossed over very well. But they did what they did. They did what they did, and people, that's how people discovered Jodeci. They're like, who is this Casey and JoJo? They thought they were the only group. No, so I like them, but I love Jodeci.
Right.
Yeah. I was looking at it. It doesn't seem like you like Casey and JoJo LeTroy.
No,
No.
we had a discussion about this on the Good Old Boys radio show a while back about how much we disliked them, and one of the members of the group of our show, Grand Wiz, said he was in high school when All My Life came out, and how it would come on the television in the cafeteria, and he had to run to try to turn it off because he hated the song so much. And you hit the nail on the head, though. It was so poppy and so different from that edge that Jodeci had when we all fell in love with them in the mid-90s.
Yeah. Like you can't, like if you listen to What About Us, I'm in need of love, and then you listen to All My Life, that's almost a different genre. But
Right.
credit for them for tapping into what was popular at the time and keeping it going.
For sure. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Good.
All right. Well, 5 groups that you feel were unsung.
Mint Condition.
Yes.
I'll say Ohio Players.
Absolutely.
Because they didn't get like, and they've been sampled, and there's love for them. The Whispers.
Yes.
The Whispers. May Scotty rest in peace.
Right.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think of some female groups too. Unsung. Who comes to
The
mind?
Jones Girls.
Yeah.
Yes. I wish they would have more hits, but yeah,
Right.
like Nights Over Egypt. I would say In Vogue, because they didn't get the proper love. They probably in the category of untapped potential too. So we'll kind of put them in both categories. And then unsung. Ooh, the 5th one. Let me think here. Like I look to the 80s. The 80s, the groups in the 80s, they had like very low record sales and no real Grammy nominations.
Like
So if you
Midnight
look at like
Star.
the 80s, Midnight, even Atlantic Star. Although they were big, they could have been bigger. I like them because they were, even though but then again, different members, different female leads or whatever. That's what happens. Let me keep thinking about the 5th one. I'll keep thinking on that one.
Who you got, Mario?
I think the ones that he just mentioned, and then and you know how I feel about Midnight Star, and I just really feel like Midnight Star just has not gotten its proper due. I think a lot, like you mentioned, like it's just for whatever reason those groups in the '80s. I think maybe it was so many groups in the '80s, and you had the SOS Band, you had Midnight Star, Atlantic Star, as you mentioned. Atlantic Star probably was the biggest one, mainly because of the one hit. That everybody ends up playing at their wedding now, and still to this day. So, but they had, and then they had the other one. What's the other one? The Secret Lovers, as well.
Secret Lovers, always. But then Atlantic Star, they also had Circles, which was really popular.
Right. Touch of 4-Leaf Clover.
I'll say unsung. I'll say The Deal, because that's where Babyface came from. And Babyface changed the whole landscape of R&B music.
Right.
Yeah. I also would add Troop to that list too.
Oh yeah,
I really like Troop.
Okay, Silk. Silk too.
Another one.
Silk is another one too. Yeah.
They
had a good run.
Yeah, a few that I had that's already mentioned was Midnight Star and Mint Condition, and then I had Intro, Rolls Royce, and Surface.
Yeah, Surface is another one.
Shower Me With Your Love and Happy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Great list. Yeah.
Closer Than Friends.
Yeah, Closer Than Friends. Yeah.
All right, so talk about the tragedies. Like we had, some of the notable ones was Frankie Lyman. We had the plane crash involving the Barkays, Florence Ballard, people like Tony Thompson. So
High Five. Yeah. Yeah. I say tragedies. I think DeBarge, with the drug use and everything that tore them apart. And then they had family members that were in Switch and not together. That's one that comes to mind right away, is DeBarge. That's like a tragedy, more so for like the drug use that kind of ripped them apart. You mentioned Frankie Lyman, which I really didn't know much about till I did the research for the book. But he was probably a star that was shining too brightly, too early. Like if they had come around in the 70s, they would have been massive, but they were just a little too early. Then he had the issue where he was dancing with the white woman on stage and on TV that really kind of killed the radio show, and people kind of were mad at them. I will always consider Left Eye passing away as a tragedy for TLC, because they could have been around much longer. They were set up to really be there longer. Who else comes to mind? Tragedies. No one's asked me this before. I'm just thinking through the groups and everyone.
You mentioned the Barcades, right?
Yeah. That's a good call.
Mhm.
Those are the ones that come to mind. I'll see if anyone else, but those are kind of the top 3 or 4. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Barge is another one where it felt like they were trying to, like, it was going to, like, okay, L is going to be a star here. And, and it felt like, and I get it, because you hear the stories about him doing all the work. And because of what you mentioned earlier about, like, the stuff that was going on, and it kind of makes sense that the label would just put all this energy into him instead. So I guess, talk a little bit about how, like, a lot of these groups end up, like, kind of tearing themselves apart. Like the Dells is another example that they ended up making it eventually, but, like,
Right.
like a lot of these groups, they always seem to have, like, a lot of problems, especially in the early days.
Yeah, I think when I did the research, the problems came from primarily 2 reasons. Drug use, number 1, but then money. And when I say money issues, particularly in the early days, they didn't understand the music business. So they weren't getting their songwriting credits. They weren't getting their publishing. So then they look up 5, 7, 10 years later, they've got these hits playing on the radio, selling all these records. They're not getting any money. They have to be out on the tour, whether it be the Chitlin circuit or a normal tour, for like months. And I think that then the issues with their managers or the record labels caused them to be upset, and they lost their passion and fire for performing. And then, after that goal kind of fades, that's a wrap, because then, they're always thinking about money. They're not thinking about the love. The quality of the songwriting will decline. So those are like the 2 issues. But I really think it's just a lack of education about the music business that really hurt groups. Nowadays, at least they know a little more. They still don't know a lot, but at least they know a little more to at least get their songwriting credits and hold on to their publishing. Because some of these groups, and I know I need to be fact checked, but, like, I know that Charlie Wilson makes more money from his current releases as a solo artist than he does from the Gap Band. And those songs have been out for decades, placed in movies, all sorts of things. But he doesn't make a lot of money off that because of the lack of knowledge on the music business.
The same thing happened to George Clinton, where he
Yes.
basically provided the sound for West Coast hip hop and didn't receive a dollar for it.
No dollars. Like, it's just, so that's why I'm very, very passionate about teaching both my students in college about the music business, but also when I'm coaching, like, artists and other musicians and bands about that. Like, I'm very passionate about just setting you up with the basic knowledge so you can make the best decisions so that you can have the long money. Because you don't want some random producer or songwriter that has had nothing to do with your career for 30 years getting these checks that should be going to you.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. It was drugs, and then a lack of knowledge about the music business really hurt groups and tore them apart.
Yeah. So we recently saw footage of Kelly Rowland and Michelle Williams joining Beyonce on stage in Las Vegas for the
Just
Cowboy
last
Carter
week.
tour.
Yeah.
And the crowd erupted. Do you see Destiny's Child reuniting for an album or a tour, maybe including Latavia and LaToya as well? Like, where do you see that going?
So I would say probably no to Latavia and LaToya, but I would say I could see a tour would be massive. If they're able to do an album, that would be massive. It's so funny. I just met Matthew Knowles 2 days ago. He was at this conference I was at in Phoenix. I was able to give him the book, so hopefully we'll see what he thinks. But maybe an album. A tour probably might, as funny as it thinks, a tour might be easier to pull off than another whole album. But I think maybe once Cowboy Carter kind of has its run, it would be good timing, and they see the reaction, because then you'll have people who were kind of growing up with Destiny's Child. Then they would come out, they'd have more disposable income. Then they would come out, you can introduce them to like a younger audience. That's kind of the formula that I think is going to happen moving forward. Like, I think I put in the book, if you had a group like Jasmine Sullivan, Leela James, and like her, like, I think it's going to be flipped. Whereas we talked about earlier, the group would be together, then they would break out to individual stars. Where I think you're going to have individual stars that will come together to make a group, a la Silk Sonic, Now,
Yep.
unfortunately, they don't get along, creative differences, so no more.
Oh,
But
I
they,
didn't even know that.
yeah, so no more for them. They're
Oh,
like
wow.
not working together, and
Terrible.
they had a great quick run.
Yeah.
Now they done. So I think tour first, album second. I'm not thinking Latavia or Latanya would join, but if they do, that would be tremendous.
That would be awesome.
But I think they're paying attention because he mentioned that. Matthew knows he mentioned the reception that they had in Las Vegas. So I think they're always paying attention to different ways to keep them top of mind. Then you also have Blue Ivy that can be a part of the tour and all sorts of things that can be part of the tour. So I would say yes, but tour first, album second.
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
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 All right,
that would be good.
So as we prepare to close, like share one story from any group that just resonated with you and it's like, you know what, the work I put into this was worth it, just to share their story.
Okay, so I have two stories I like to share. The first, well, we'll start back in the day. So it's in the book. So three. First of all, Jimi Hendrix used to be playing with the Ozzy Brothers. Didn't know that. There you go. So yes, and he lived in the basement of one of the members. That's a phenomenal story. Then, I don't know if you've read how. So what's your favorite Gladys Knight? So if you're talking about Gladys, what's your favorite song by Gladys Knight and the Pips?
Midnight Train to Georgia is mine.
Okay,
Yeah, I was
that
gonna say
song,
neither one of us.
oh, that's a good one too.
That one too.
I
That's
love
number
how.
two.
Yeah, neither one of us wants to be the first to say goodbye. What a line.
Right.
What a line. What a line. Woo! So anyways, Midnight Train to Georgia. The songwriter is Jim Weatherly. He calls up, because he was playing flag football with the $6 million man, Lee Majors. So he calls up Lee Majors, because they talk about flag football, and Lee Majors was dating Farrah Fawcett at the time. And so he calls up and Farrah Fawcett answers the phone. So they're talking, making small talk. He says, well, what are you up to this weekend, Farrah? She says, oh, I'm going to take a midnight plane to Texas to visit my family. So he takes midnight plane to Texas, makes Midnight Train to Georgia, the song, gives it to Sissy Houston, who sings it as a country song, then Last Night covers it, one of the best, top 100 songs of all time. That's one favorite story there. Then we know about Weak by SWV. So the songwriter, Brian Alexander Morgan, I believe is his name, wrote that song initially for Charlie Wilson to sing. Charlie Wilson couldn't take it, but it's about his crush on Shantae Moore.
Right.
And so I love that story too. And then they gave it to SWV and they didn't think they could sing it, but then they did. It's their biggest hit. Their biggest hit. So those are like two of my favorite stories like that I discovered. I mean, there's so many more, but those are two that always come to mind.
That story is always fascinating to me because I think that people see that song so much from a woman's perspective, not realizing that it was actually written for a man about a woman.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And now you listen to it, you're like, okay, I see what you're doing here. You know, I get so weak in the knees when, ooh, yes. And, you know, makes sense. So,
All right, Amani. So feel free to plug where we can find you, plug The Quiet Storm.
Okay.
The whole nine.
Thank you for getting the book. Please be sure to leave your 5-star review on Amazon. That's really important so we can spread the word. If like particularly a message like anyone out there who's like a musician or who works a 9 to 5 but wants to like monetize their art, whether it be like a musician or an author, just go to amaniexperience.com, AMANI experience1word.com/call. Set up a call with me because that's who I work with. I love to work with those people who are working 9 to 5s but have a art that they want to monetize. And then feel free to pick up the book, The Quiet Storm, a historical and cultural analysis of the power, passion, and pain, wherever you get your books, whether it be Amazon, Barnes & Noble's, BookBaby, anywhere. And just get the book, leave a review, and just keep spreading the word.
I just ordered it on Amazon. I just ordered it.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I appreciate you. So when you get it, also, there's some Easter eggs in the book. There's a bunch of them. There's like, for example, there could be certain songs or certain groups that actually came when they were a single artist. There's different colors for the decades. There's just different Easter eggs in there that I put on purpose. The biggest Easter egg is I put like Outkast as an R&B group, but I did that on purpose. And so just see if you could recognize the Easter eggs and send it to me when you pick it up on what's there.
And you also have a playlist, QR codes for the playlist.
Yeah,
and the
Metro.
samples as well. So
Yes.
me and Mario are sample fiends. We love
Yeah.
digging in the crates and listening
Yeah.
to hip hop and then figuring out the origins of it. So
Yeah.
for true music heads,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is something you need to add to your collection. So
Yeah.
Amani, man, thanks again. Thanks
Mm-hmm.
again for your time.
Appreciate it.
Thanks again for your contributions to the culture. And
Yeah.
like I said earlier in the interview, we want to do this
Okay, let's do it.
this
I'm gonna
list.
take my
Yeah.
notes. Yeah, I'm gonna do my research. I'm gonna be ready with some lists and some debating points. That will be exciting. So let me know
All right.
when.
All right,
Yeah,
cool.
Nice to
So
meet you, Mario. Appreciate it. And
Same
just
here.
thanks for taking the opportunity to choose to spread the word about the book, and just so I appreciate that, because we need more of that. So thank you.
Amen.
yeah. All right. So I have my co-host here, so I'm gonna let you close out the show this week.
What am I going to use? Want me to just say we'll see you on the radio next week?
And we're out this funky thing. Peace and blessings.